Hello and welcome to Business Standard Views of the Week. What does India's rising unemployment rate mean for the country's economic recovery? What will be the trends and challenges for the banking sector in the new year? And why does India need higher expenditure on infrastructure to sustain our economic recovery? Subscribe to Business Standard and read this week's top opinion pieces to find out. We start this episode with an analysis of India's rising unemployment rate. The unemployment rate rose to 7.9% in December 2021. In each of the last 3 months, October, November, and December 2021, the unemployment rate has been at 7% or more. An unemployment rate in excess of 7% combined with an inflation rate of nearly 5% when the stated policy is to target an inflation rate of 4% makes India look like an economy suffering from both of what could be alternate evils. The near term economic outlook, therefore, looks worse than where India stands today. In his latest column, Mahesh Vyas explains that the jobs that the Indian economy is losing are all salaried jobs in sectors such as hotels and tourism and education, whereas new jobs are being created in agriculture and construction, which are not as well paying. It is important to arrest the fall in salaried jobs and increase their share in total employment. Now, moving on to how 2021 was for India's defense sector. On December 31st, the Ministry of Defense released its traditional year end review. In his latest column, Ajay Shukla writes that the review focuses almost exclusively on the military's successes and achievements during the year gone by, while soft peddling its shortcomings. Among the achievements, the review mentions the appointment of a Tri Service Chief of Defense Staff and the creation of a Department of Military Affairs in the MOD as the most significant and transformative defense reform undertaken by any government since independence. It also talks about boosting indigenous equipment being developed under the Atmanirbhar Bharat slogan. However, Shukla writes that few important questions, such as the delay in the procurement of the indigenous Tejas light combat aircraft and the Arjun battle tank, remain unanswered in the review. Now, let's move on to a subject that's on everyone's minds. Just when we thought that the worst of the COVID pandemic was behind us, the Omicron variant has again sent COVID infection numbers soaring in most parts of India. We are again pondering curfews and lockdowns. Given the scenario, it would be interesting to look at how India reacted to the news of a pandemic more than 100 years ago. In her latest column, Nivedita Mukherjee looks at how Indian newspapers reported on the Spanish flu that spread in the country in 1918. Interestingly, while the deadly flu was first detected in India sometime in June 1918, it was only in October that year that the Sanitary Commissioner issued a formal notification declaring a pandemic. At that time, newspapers reported about work at post offices, telegraph departments, offices, banks, and mills being seriously affected due to a shortage of hands. Meanwhile, the spread of infection in India led to a spike in advertisements of gargles and tonics in newspapers. Staying with the subject of COVID, it is important now for all Indians to realize the seriousness of the ongoing third wave of COVID. While experts say that COVID infections caused by the Omicron variant mostly have mild symptoms, the rate of increase in infections and the enhanced transmissibility pose serious risk to our country's fledgling health infrastructure. In an editorial, Business Standard explains that even if only a small proportion of cases require hospitalization, the absolute number may still be enough at the peak of a wave to inundate hospitals in hotspots. In other parts of the world where the Omicron wave is more advanced, an additional problem has been noted. A large number of healthcare workers have tested positive and have to quarantine, thereby reducing capacity in hospitals. The government must, therefore, not slacken its efforts to get the pandemic in control. In a recent advisory, the Union Health Ministry argued that asymptomatic contacts of COVID positive individuals did not need to be tested. It is not certain whether this is wise because it would understate the scale of the problem and lead to complacency. The government must also be flexible about the vaccination program now that it is increasingly clear that booster shots provide heightened protection against the Omicron variant. While it is important to contain the spread of infections, the government would also do well not to hamper the country's economic recovery. In an editorial, Business Standard explains that infrastructure investment with better planning and focus would yield higher returns and make Indian businesses more efficient. The need for higher infrastructure investment in general, and in times like these in particular, cannot be overstated. COVID related uncertainty would continue to affect output and growth. The editorial adds that since the government has to progressively reduce the fiscal deficit, it will need to calibrate overall expenditure to sustain higher capital expenditure over the medium term. From infrastructure, let's shift our focus to the trends and challenges that will define India's banking sector this year. The headline inflation could range between 5 and 5.5% this year. Technically, it is still within the RBI's target, 4% within a band of plus minus 2%, but the goalpost seems to have shifted to 6%. The market will extract the price. This means the cost of government borrowing in fiscal year 2023 will rise, even though there is a delay in the rate hike. In the best case scenario, The size of the borrowing program this year could remain the same as in fiscal year 2022, rupees 12.5 trillion, but it won't be a cakewalk for the government unless the RBI extends a helping hand. In his latest column, Tamal Bandyopadhyay writes that there could be a couple of rate hikes this year, looking at the likely inflation and growth trajectory. The RBI has kept its real GDP growth estimate unchanged at 9.5% for 2021-22. Going beyond securing growth on a sustainable basis, the RBI wants to make it broad-based. Bandyopadhyay adds that in the new year, the RBI might open the doors for new banks. We could also see the privatization of 2 public sector banks. However, whether the cryptocurrency conundrum will be solved still remains doubtful. Finally, we bring this episode of BS Views to a close with a timely piece on the things that we need to watch out for in the union budget next month. Starting with government debt, which has climbed steeply on account of large deficits run up as a response to the pandemic. The spending in the midst of revenue loss was unavoidable and was relatively moderate. Still, the after effects stay with us. Government debt is approaching 90% of GDP. That compares with under 70% before the pandemic and the desirable level of 60%. In his latest column, TNNN writes that in a budget speech, all that talk about big increases in outlays for government programs are just a play with smoke and mirrors. If revenue and total expenditure haven't gone up in relation to GDP, and if some programs are getting more money, it is obvious that there are others getting less. Nennan writes that there are only 2 ways to increase revenue. One is to deliver a rapidly growing economic pie. That is how a much heavier interest burden as share of government receipts was shrunk in the first decade of the century. Unfortunately, the global conditions are different now. The other is the reassessment of tax policy, namely reform of GST, closing corporate tax loopholes, and asking why taxes on capital gains are much lower than on earned income and taxes on wealth non-existent.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.